The Huge Nerd Podcast, brought to you by the Huge Nerd Network, your place for everything nerd culture. Now, it's clobbering time.
All right, welcome to the Huge Nerd Podcast, brought to you by the Huge Nerd Network at hugenerd.net. My name is Corey, and today we have a segment I like to call Circuits and Screens. That's where me and Wendell say hello.
Hello.
We talk about TV and tech, and sometimes we're joined by others, but today it's just going to be the two of us. So we're going to be talking about a few shows we've been watching and how we like them so far this season. Going to talk about some of the shows that have been officially canceled or look to be canceled, and some of the shows that have been officially picked up. And then later on, we're going to talk some tech with the new Microsoft laptops and some of the new Apple products that are coming out. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with some TV shows. So I want to start with one you wanted to talk about, Wendell, which is Star Wars Rebels.
Star Wars Rebels, yes. So, of course, we're, as a society, in full Star Wars mania.
Yes.
There's Star Wars everything. The trailer dropped, 2 months to watching The Force Awakens. But I was really excited to talk about the little engine that is Star Wars Rebels. It takes place in between episodes 3 and 4. In a weird period in time where there's not much, even when there was the expanded universe, there wasn't a whole lot of information about kind of what went on in that area post Order 66 and pre, the Death Star getting built and whatnot. And so the creator of the show, Dave Filoni, is also the guy who was the showrunner for The Clone Wars, which if you haven't seen, you should definitely also watch. It is probably one of the best just Star Wars things around.
In general, yeah.
I was super skeptical about it. I've never cared for the Clone Wars in any capacity. Genndy Tartakovsky had a really fun little mini-series that he did way back when about the Clone Wars. That was nice, but I've never cared about that stuff. It's anything too prequel-y. I'm like, I don't want to really mess around with it. He single-handedly, and obviously he had a whole writing team and a bunch of great producers and whatnot, redeemed the prequel saga for me. Everything that, the prequels failed at, Clone Wars just did well. Anakin is great. Obi-Wan is a fleshed-out character. The battles seem to actually have weight. I mean, literally, it's if he took the wish list of every single deficiency of the prequels and then just fixed it. So then, of course, that got canceled when Lucasfilm was bought by Disney in 2012. The Netflix ended up showing the unreleased episodes, and they're exclusive to Netflix, so those are really great as well. But the future of some major characters and players in that show had been up in the air. And then also that show kind of leaned more teenage boy. I mean, late teens. It was the crossover hit. It was real hard hitting. There was some moments where I was like, "This is a children's show. This is dark. This is really intense." It was really exciting. Rebels is different. Rebels is on Disney XD, so it's shooting for its Y7 rating, which kind of made me worried at first. I was like, I don't know, kind of a kiddie show, and kind of in the same vein of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D's first season, it kind of starts off slow. Just kind of let me introduce you to the characters, a weird happy-go-lucky adventure a week, and then there's a turning point, and then everything gets amazing forever. And pretty much out of the gate, the show has been absolutely killing it. They're in their 3rd episode right now. They had a sort of a season premiere that took place in the summer and then was wait for 6 weeks and then we'll actually show you the show. But Darth Vader makes an appearance. He's the big bad of this season, which when you start thinking Star Wars spin-offs, you're like, how much are they actually going to delve into full canon? They've gone, full Vader on this. He's there. He's deeply impressive, doing scary stuff. It's phenomenal. The backstory that they're ended up doing here is really bridging the gaps between the Clone Wars and the new saga. And again, Dave Filoni, he's just a really thoughtful, really great creator, and he adds a lot of. He'll do a thing where he recycle lines from the original trilogy, just just 100%, all the way from "I've got a bad feeling about this" to just throwaway lines that you don't even think about. he'll put it in other characters' mouths, and it keeps reminding you, oh man, I'm in Star Wars world. Yeah. This is fantastic. But also, like, putting it's a really well done. The fans should love it. There's a lot to like. The characters are growing, developing, and the stakes are raising. I don't want to give too many spoilers because there are certain things that, especially if you're a Clone Wars fan but haven't watched Rebels, that are really exciting. But let's just say that the fates of some characters from Clone Wars gets revealed in really amazing, fun ways, and we'll leave it at that. But it's been a phenomenal first couple episodes thus far, and I again highly recommend if you're a Star Wars fan like me, you're thirsting for a new show. Definitely could not recommend this show more. Because also you can watch it with your kids. I would not watch Clone Wars with my kids. It's kind of terrifying at times. It's great, but like they definitely pushed it more of that Toonami, even Adult Swim kind of content-wise, because it gets real gritty. Rebels does a good job of bridging the gap between not only those two series and eras of Star Wars saga, but just crossover hit for kids and adults alike.
Nice. Yeah, one thing I was thinking about that you mentioned earlier was Star Wars, before it got bought by Disney, and this whole path we're on to The Force Awakens started. I noticed, like, since the prequels, there has been some good stuff. There's been some good video games. There's been some good shows. So it's like, I think, not enough credit's given to that because that kept the franchise alive. It kept it like with a pulse. So now that there's this new hope around it, which is kind of, a funny way to put it. But I mean, really, like there was enough quality in the franchise that it was worth Disney to buy it. Right. Mm-hmm. And granted, like there's always a nostalgia factor, but I think the success of maybe Clone Wars and some of the other properties probably made them think, hey, this could be a hit for the newest generation, as opposed to just like the guys like us who are like going all crazy over new Star Wars, right? But so I think that's kind of interesting, and something I didn't really think of before. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's kind of like Marvel, like you know what to expect from the movies, like you get a pretty quality product, but it's good to see that like their TV properties, especially, and we should talk about this later, the Jessica Jones trailer. but like that, I mean, their TV properties are arguably now like about to overtake the movies in quality and like story and everything. And so I always like to see that, because to me, and it's kind of given by us having the segment, like I'm a bigger TV fan than a movie fan. There's a lot of reasons behind it, but one of them is because I have kids and I just don't get to go to the movies a lot. And I like TV because I like serialization. I like longer stories. I like more character development. Movies, you get this kind of 2 to 3 hour window. So I always like to hear that the lesser properties, right? Like, the small screen is still getting the same love. So,
and that's, I think, a testament to how meticulous Disney is. Mm-hmm. Like I remember 2012, I was so worried. I was like, oh my God, Disney's got Star Wars. They've done such a good job with Marvel. Granted, that was more their experiment. Like, it wasn't like perfect from the get-go, but they finally, Kevin Feige, is that how you pronounce his name? Yeah. He gets his stuff together, and they've got a program, and they know how to they've got the resources, they know where to put them, and so it's kind of a weight off of the shoulders to see how broad Disney goes with maintaining their properties, Star Wars included, and I think the inclusion of what arguably like was a very Star Wars-y, like Clone Wars wasn't pitched to everyone. Like it was kind of really only Star Wars fans knew about it, and people that were, I guess, watching Cartoon Network. It wasn't a big thing, even while it was kind of bolstering the genre. Hey, obviously because of probably weird rights issues, like we can't keep this show going, but we recognize like the space that it has in the canon, and we can do our own Disney thing, which I think is where the decision to make it Y7 comes from, is like, we need the full pipeline. Obviously, like the movie's going to be cool and amazing, but it's got to be PG-13, right? Like no one makes PG movies
I know.
Of that magnitude. So how do we get kids into the pipeline? And literally, because it takes place before episode 4, you could start kids with Rebels and then be like, actually, now you can watch Star Wars.
Yeah, I know. It's really cool. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that. All right, so let's move on to the next show. I actually want to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. next, just because we've both been watching that. I've been reviewing it on hugenerd.net every week. So there's been 4 episodes this season. One thing that's interesting to me is they've really wrapped up some plot lines kind of quicker than I thought, or at least like progressed them quicker than I thought. And it was also clear to me from the first episode that Secret Warriors is going to be a mid-season thing. Like, they're talking about it now, but they're not going to form that team until like mid-season finale, or like, I mean, is that what you think? Like, it seems pretty obvious to me that they kind of want to like bring this in after like the mid-season break, after Agent Carter.
Pretend that I'm dumb, because I am. Secret Warriors? What's that?
So the team that Daisy's putting together of the Inhumans. And so that's been kind of her driving task, right? She's like trying to recruit Inhumans for her team. And the team is supposed to match the Secret Warriors, which is a recent, a comic, a Marvel Comics series that came out. And so the Secret Warriors just like has a bunch of Inhumans. Like, you'd assume Lincoln's going to be part of it. And she's going to find some other members. But so to me, that has been like kind of the back burner story. Like, yeah, we're aware that we're trying to recruit for this team, but to me, like, it just seems very obvious to me that it's going to be a mid-season thing. Kind of like how we had to wait all the way till mid-season for Daisy to get her powers, to get her Inhuman powers and become Quake, last season. So with that kind of on the back burner, the driving story has been, Lash, which is that the Inhuman villain, and then Ward, who's the Hydra human villain, right? And
then stuff with the ATCU, which we don't really know how to figure out. Like, are they villains? Are they not? What's Coulson's plan? But yeah, I do think like they've done a good job of like having like the 3 layers, like mystery behind Lash and what he's getting up to is like sort of I'd say that's probably more the B plot, but I guess it's really a season of entirely B plots. I don't actually know what the main
like what is the driving so you saw the most recent episode, right, with the unfortunate death of of Andrew, right?
Oh yes. Oh man.
So one theory I've heard bandied about on the internet is that he is Lash.
That Andrew's Lash?
Yeah. So I'll kind of break it down why people think that. So obviously we saw that Daisy saw the shadow, and she saw that Lash can take a human form. And they said look at how bothered he was that the girl's name escapes me, the one who can clone herself and multiply.
Yes. Was it Angie?
Yeah. He was really bothered that Coulson hadn't told him about her. I'm trying to remember something. Like he doesn't want.
Well, he's the one. He's not approved anyone for the team yet. He's got tabs on literally every person,
and he always finds them before S.H.I.E.L.D. finds them, or like when S.H.I.E.L.D. finds them. So
that's interesting, but also it kind of shoots themselves in the foot if he is Lash, because that means that Lash is done.
Yeah.
If he's Lash, then he's dead.
But well, no. So then, because remember we didn't see his body, and and the reason they think that Strucker kid, the son of Strucker, was running away so scared at the end was because he became Lash and like killed all the guys, and Strucker got away.
Oh man, that would be some Joss Whedon shenanigans.
Yeah, and
for sure.
And I can see it, because if I've learned anything from this iteration of Marvel is that you never do believe anyone's dead. I mean, Loki's died like twice.
I mean, Simmons.
Yeah, exactly. Simmons came back. I mean, the only people were still saying that Trip would come back, and we saw him literally crumble into like
Trip.
rubble.
I'm still sad about Trip. I'm glad that it's Trip's loss has made it so that Mac has a more prominent role. Like he's A-list. He like last season he was kind of like this cool new guy, B-list dude, really great stuff with Fitz. But now like he's A squad. He's there. He's going alongside. He's in the field, which is funny because Mac was always like, I'm a big dude, but my actual thing is I'm just technical.
Yeah,
but now
I know.
they've gone full big dude. You're
Yeah.
just the big dude. You're the muscle. You can kick it with Daisy.
The total underrated pairing of the season is him and Daisy. And in the review, in that episode where Daisy and Lincoln kissed, I was like, Mac and Daisy have more chemistry than Lincoln and Daisy ever have. A lot of that is due to the actor who plays Lincoln. He doesn't give me what I need, because Lincoln, his backstory is that he's a recovering alcoholic. So he's kind of like, he's got that edge. He's got that, like, I can burst at any moment. And it kind of coincides with his like electric powers. But the way that actor plays it is he just seems angsty all the time, and he's like, "Oh, I'm like depressed," and I'm like,
angsty and sad, and
yeah,
he doesn't really take charge. Like that's the thing too, is that we no longer.
It's like, give me some of that like, and one thing I really love about Ward's character is he's always got this kind of controlled aggression. Like, you don't know what he's capable of. He can literally, like, he has no remorse or anything, but it's like very controlled. And I feel like Lincoln needs to be playing it like he's just got an uncontrolled aggression that could come out at any moment.
But speaking of Ward, that was, I think, a thing that really excited me about this episode is May and Hunter kicking it, doing their thing.
Yeah.
Again, another plot that I thought they could have dragged out for 5 episodes if they wanted, not really 1.5. Because, of course, they brought it up immediately. Yeah. Hey, this is kind of weird. Ward knows what you look like, so you're only going to be able to rise so high in the range before you run into issues. They do pretty much immediately. And then, because Ward is positioning himself as the Coulson of Hydra and taking very liberally from Coulson's strategy of rebuilding Hydra, he's got a contingency plan. And so, like, when Hunter like rolls up, he's like, and sees May's there, he again has now Andrew in the scopes.
Yeah.
And that moment between like Hunter and May where they're like, no, this is just like an expedient job. It's just a job. Like, I have emotional reasons for it, but we've all recognized how important this guy is as a target, suddenly gets called into question because Andrew is like the linchpin for their whole Inhumans project.
Yeah.
Like, if Hunter was thinking about it tactically, he'd be like, I can't make my project bigger than our larger project. I can't then also like essentially betray my friend May and her ex-husband or what have you over my thing too. But we see that Hunter, through those actions and that choice, that Hunter has gone over the edge. May can say it all she wants. I think Hunter's gone over the edge. I think Hunter's in too deep. It's the setting up of that scene and the setting up of those stakes that really sells that. And I'm like, oh, look, good storytelling.
Yeah. And
it really, like, they'll tell you things. They'll tell you stuff in, like, just the overt, and they'll be like, this is happening. And then it'll be like, no, we'll sell it to you with action. And that's just good. And that's something I've really appreciated about the show.
I also loved, and I said, I think in the first episode review, like, Ward has fully embraced his Bond villain status. Like, he's just like chewing scenery, and like, I feel like he like hung out with Kyle MacLachlan last season, and he's like he learned how to chew scenery and just like you know what I mean, like, because Kyle MacLachlan, like, he propelled season 2 into just something else. Like, he was awesome. But yeah, so Ward is just like having such a great time with it, and man, and Hunter's always had this great ability to banter and just like, he's just got such charm to him, and their face off and the words they exchanged during the face off were just fantastic, like so biting, like he's like, oh well, you shot your girlfriend dead, right? And like, you could just see Ward's like, God, he got me there, you know. And the other thing I loved about that scene was exploring the history between Ward and May, and when she shows up, his face, like, he's like actually worried, you know, like, you know,
might be
yeah, he's like, oh, you know, because he knows May, and I love that he's more afraid of May and Bobby than he is of Hunter. Like with Hunter, he's like, I got this handled, and he's like, you should have brought Bobby, then it would have actually been a fight, you know. And it's just like, I love that history and those exchanges. And yeah, that was a powerful and tough scene, and you got that feeling in the beginning of last episode where like in the beginning, these Inhumans just get brutally murdered by Lash, and you're just like, something's up with this episode. This is kind of a darker one. And even all the buildup in that episode was just characters like Fitz was in, pout and jerk mode. And like he was being a total jerk. I mean, I love Fitz, but I was like, dude, you can't do Bobby like that. Come on, man. She's just standing by Simmons,
Oh yeah. Also, Bobby is just like the total dumping ground of like everyone right now, because like Simmons is a dick to Bobby, and Fitz is a dick to Bobby, and Bobby's like, I just want to go out and kick people, but I can't because my leg's broken because Ward tortured me forever last season. Remember that, guys?
I know. It's like, yeah, you've been on a planet, but I was kind of tortured and almost died, so just can someone give me some help here? And yeah, I need to see her kicking ass soon, because I'm like, why is she just sitting around in a lab all day? It's like Mac last season. It's like, this dude can clearly like kick some ass. Let him do it, Or
it's more like, honestly, and I really like how they put all of the characters through the same type of ringer. Mm-hmm. And by that I mean like everyone's got like some that they're dealing with, like May and her stuff with her husband, but also like being the cavalry, Coulson's hand, and the dissolution of like his team and maybe losing Simmons. Fitz, his brain seems to be working just fine, but we still technically, you can still see occasionally he'll bust out like that his brain doesn't really work properly. Fitzsimmons now has her thing on the alien planet. Bobby's got to like deal with her leg. Hunter has to deal with the fact that Bobby almost died, and now like he's something that he actually cares about. Pretty much the only, I mean, again, Daisy like sort of to sailed her mom up the river, had to get rid of her dad, her whole people are like lost and blah blah blah. And Mac actually ends up being the only one that doesn't have anything particularly traumatic happen to him, and as a result also ends up being again, it's hard to say this because it's by like points, but the most boring character on the show because he has less to struggle with.
Well, I feel like his main roles is just being out there with Daisy in the field, because all the other characters need to be doing other things for the service of their plot. And so because like I think it would be Bobby if it wasn't, and Bobby and Daisy have shown to have some great chemistry in the past too, but if she wasn't sidelined, I think it would be with her. But I love the interplay between Mac and Daisy, and I think they make a really good team. And kind of back to the ALCU, right? So
the ATCU?
ATCU. I always say ALCU.
Wait, whatever. ALC is American Civil Liberties.
So I've never been a fan of this rival agency stuff, especially last season with the whole new S.H.I.E.L.D. crap.
I loved New S.H.I.E.L.D.
Really?
New S.H.I.E.L.D. was fun because like I get bored when it's like S.H.I.E.L.D. versus Hydra. Like we've had this fight, and I'm even more compelled with S.H.I.E.L.D. versus Hydra because S.H.I.E.L.D. versus Hydra with someone who is basing the new Hydra off of S.H.I.E.L.D. So that like gives some interesting things. But continue.
Yeah. Well, so the ATCU. The only reason I find that interesting is because of Rosalind and Coulson's
hella chemistry.
Yeah. And that's kind of interesting because, I mean, Coulson's never been a very straight leader in terms of like having his stuff together. He's always had something going on in his mind, whether he's like going after some
insane because he's got alien blood.
Yeah. But it's interesting to see kind of the human part of it because like, well, then again, he's always been that way with Skye. Because when she was Skye, like he was obsessed with her, he was just like Skye is special, blah, blah, but it's interesting because they've got this rival agency, but yeah, there's something going on with him and Rosalind, and I like how they play off each other. I think
he sees an equal, I think, for the first time, and Coulson hasn't really gotten any action since. He hasn't had. I mean, everyone has been making googly eyes at everyone. Yeah, except for Mac, and again, Mac is. It's funny because, and I wonder if this is like on purpose, and I hate to be harping about Max so much, but like it is so strange that he's the one character that has so little, and I wonder if he's like an inversion of like the hot chick.
Yeah.
Like he's literally he's great and we love him and he gets really great lines, but he doesn't do anything, and everyone has had like a romantic pairing. Everyone has had a struggle. Everyone has a backstory. You almost want to like read Bobby as, oh, she's not chick. No, Bobby's got all kinds of depth. Like we know this. We've seen it a bunch of times. There was a time where even Daisy, and honestly, due to some costuming choices, I think they still are trying to push her as like the total badass like woman, but like it's window dressing. We've seen her go through her arc. It's not just that she came fully formed, total badass. She had to suck really hard in the beginning to be this great.
And I also like the callback to her having the tech skills, like the hacking skills. And like just how Coulson's like, I assumed you did, and then she just opens it and shows it. Like she doesn't even say, yeah, I did, you know, like which is great because it's like, don't forget that those early character moments, because like that was why she was picked in the first place to join S.H.I.E.L.D. was because of those skills. And yeah, she can like move mountains now and, you know, shoot people and all that, but like, you know, she still has those other skills. And the whole Bobby and the lab thing is also a callback to the comics where Mockingbird was like really skilled in the lab as well. So yeah, I mean, that's all very appreciated, and I like where the show's going. I think the next episode is really going to focus on Simmons because she has to go back. We have to go back.
Why she has to go back, and she has to go. Like that's again, it drives me insane because on the one hand, I'm just like, no, I don't want her to go back. This sucks because I'm like Team Fitz, but on the other hand, I'm like, they've got to have something real interesting up their sleeve. And again, I think this is the season of not one plot, but literally just we're just gonna have 5 plots. It's cool. We'll have 5 different climaxes. Maybe they'll come together, or maybe just each character will have their own climax. But it's weird. But Fitz's happened already.
I know.
Like that was the thing, is that like Fitz, his goal was to get Simmons, and he got her, and now he's even kind of sidelined a little bit. Like his role is support for Simmons, but Fitz really hasn't done anything since getting her out of the portal.
What was interesting, and we'll move on from this shortly because we could talk about this all day. But, I thought it was interesting that she wouldn't tell him because, and I mentioned this in my review. I don't quite get it because of everything they've been through at this point. Like she knows anything she wants to do, he's gonna be down for. Like he is so like dedicated to her, like to a fault. Like he will risk everyone else's lives. And like, you know, Daisy was bleeding and like, you know, using her powers to the point where it was like knocking her out. And he was like, I still got to go get her. Sorry, I'm going to just jump in now and like go get her from this planet. So I don't get why Simmons would be afraid to tell him. Like, I mean, if she would, no matter what she tells him, he's going to be like, yep, yeah, I'll help you find it. Let's do it. Come on. Like, you know, and that's exactly what he did.
But what's interesting is that we don't have enough information. There could be something on the planet that she's trying to protect him from.
Yeah.
It's just, again, it's a really great device in as far as it's also infuriating in the sense that it's just, never before have we had something in S.H.I.E.L.D. where I'm just like, I need to know. And they're not even like hinting at it. They're not even like foreshadowing. Like they're really good at breadcrumbs sometimes. It's just nothing. It's just crazy thing happened to me and I got to go back. And we're like, we know nothing about that place still. And again, I think it's just brilliant writing because, again, we never thought that they were going to get Simmons back so quickly. We never thought that we were already going to be dealing with the Lash thing. It makes me think that, like, they're distracting us with these first 5 of 20 to something much, much bigger.
Yeah.
Because right now, like, Phase 3 doesn't start again till
May,
2016?
Right? Yeah, till Captain America. Civil War.
So again, I think what ultimately is going to happen is they have to push towards Civil War because they have that will be probably the that'll probably be like the episode 21 shake up. Oh my God, the universe has changed.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I wonder if how it'll play with Jessica Jones, which we'll talk about next, and I think maybe even Daredevil or Luke Cage will have a season start before Civil War. So, I mean, we don't have the release dates for those yet, but I assume those will be early next year.
I think they're all supposed to start at around Daredevil's later, but Luke Cage I thought was just right on the heels of Jessica Jones.
Like I was thinking like February or March for that, but we'll see.
Well, that's where I'm at. So I think we're the same.
Because Jessica Jones is November, so
November 20th.
Yeah. So speaking of Jessica Jones, the kind of full trailer came out. Everyone's talking about the Star Wars trailer. This was the one that blew my mind this week. Star Wars blew my mind, but like this one, I was just like geeking out about even more so, because I love the feel of it. It's just dark. It's gritty. It's like psychologically like in your head. And Kristen Ritter is just like total badass in that role. Like I just feel it with her, man. It feels good.
So it's weird. So I'm going to preface by saying, love the trailer. Real excited for Jessica Jones. I had always been excited for Jessica Jones until they cast Kristen Ritter. I've never liked her.
Okay. Yeah, and I've never been a huge fan of her. And I was kind of like on it too, but I really liked her in this trailer. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, yes, I've never liked her, so I've been very skeptical. Mostly because, like, I don't know, Jessica Jones for me has always been. I mean, she doesn't look like Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
For one. That's one of the issues. And Jessica Jones has kind of always had this bombshell vibe, and they're not playing that angle, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Like, I think ultimately, like, now having seen the trailer, kind of seeing where they're going with it. Jessica Jones, I think, is going to be fundamentally different than what maybe people who've like been keeping up with her in the comics are going to expect, in a good way. Like, I think that whole Defenders area is such a good place for Disney Marvel to be, because it's so small, it's so self-contained. Again, eventually there are going to be these crossovers, but it allows this, like, Avengers is like big, intergalactic, in your face, fate of the universe stuff, and Defenders, you get to deal with this, like, there's no psychological, interesting characterization stuff that's going on in Avengers that can hold a candle to what they've already done with Daredevil, what they're already setting up to do with Jessica Jones and what Luke Cage and all of those things. And so it's nice to be able to see, like, those are going to be the series where people are like, comic books aren't just about spectacle. Spectacle's big. It's a real big thing. Like, we'll have your big blow 'em up, shoot 'em up movie, obviously, but what was interesting about these characters is how they deal with, each individual one deals with being a superhero.
Yeah.
You know? And I think when you get to these, like, sort of, I wouldn't say B-class, C-class heroes, but these people who aren't defined by their powers. They're literally defined by their relationships. Like, Luke Cage is real powerful.
Yeah.
Jessica Jones is super powered. It's an asterisk. They're powered. They're not like with the powers of a spider or with the god of a. They're not specific because their powers don't matter. It's just that they are of these class of people, and now what do you do? How do you choose to live your life when you're being that class of people? And that really shone through with the trailer, because again, when you start thinking about superheroes, like, well, what could be so terrible that could happen to someone? And of course, the mind reader angle of like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's real terrifying, because having no control but having power and being able to be used towards horrible ends is like a very compelling, terrifying reality. And I think what they're going for, I think they're going more broadly for just kind of trauma. It's going to be a fine line. I've already heard like wrinklings in the different circles that I roll through that people are really worried and are kind of holding their breath about the implicit rape metaphor that's going to end up going on with Jessica Jones, or just, again, violence towards women sort of in general. I think potentially us as a society, we're getting a little tired, and not tired bored, but tired like weary, in the same way that like we're tired of seeing like black people getting like killed in this. It's that same sort of as a trope. I think it's still important. I would weirdly like defend stories that invoke this, because I don't think we get it, and especially in like the superhero genre, there's an opportunity for this particular audience to really get a really important lesson. But it will be interesting to see how that as well, because again, that's already, you start seeing it in Game of Thrones. This is the season where, for people who hadn't already learned the lesson of it's kind of terrible to be a woman in all contexts, Game of Thrones got really tiring this season. There's still people left to get woke, and so I think those messages were still like important, but we're getting to that point where, all right, who's this marketed for, and what are the lessons that they're trying to teach? So that's something that, in a weird way, also excites me about the show, because I think it's something they must have thought about.
I think it's good in general. Like, I think just the reaction to the Black Widow speech in Age of Ultron showed that people don't quite get it. They thought she was referencing her baby. She wasn't. She was referencing the fact that she's a killer. In that speech to Hulk, right? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And and even like in the characterization of what's the girl from Daredevil? Karen Page. Okay, so Karen Page in Daredevil, I thought was very. I really liked how she was written. You know, she was totally pegged to be the damsel in distress. In that first episode, she's nearly murdered. She wakes up next to a murdered person. All this stuff, and you think, oh, you know, this is the girl Daredevil's saving. She murders someone before he does, right? Like, I mean, she totally takes out Kingpin's right-hand man and sends him into a tailspin because of it. And that's where, you know, Kingpin starts to become really vulnerable to enough that Matt Murdock can take him down. And then just her whole angle of trying to take him down through journalism and through digging, and she finds his mom. And I mean, she causes a lot of problems, but she's also like the most cunning character, I would say, even more so than Daredevil. And that to me is all good. Like I just the glimpses I saw of Jessica Jones, like she's drinking heavily. She's talking to Luke Cage about all these issues. She's very conflicted about her powers and about what they mean and about what she's done. Like, that's all good. I don't want to break out that strong female character trope. Because as one of my favorite actresses always says, it's just a strong character. Tatiana Maslany, she always says it's just a strong character. Maslany. Yeah, we'll schedule a podcast where we just like geek on her for
gush about her. Yeah, but I think that's an interesting thing you bring up though, because like my worry is that the strong female character trope, like for people who get it, it becomes a trope so quickly because it ends up being used in the exact same way because there is this overcorrection. But then there's this weird tension to the fact that like it can't be a trope, and we can't get bored of it until everyone is bored of it. I feel like creators are getting more bored of it. You're even seeing it with Joss, where he's like purposefully like complicating things and trying to. Again, he's one that also jumps up to say like, I just write strong characters and they happen to be female.
Yeah.
But there is this aspect of we need to boost those characters up, which is why I'm so stoked that we get Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. Yes, on a basic, you know, for some people would just find it as a boring level. It's like, oh, you're just happy because there's a black person and a woman. I'm like, yes! Because that mantle of heroism does not extend equally in any sort of capacity to those people. And so while it is tropic in the sense that like there is like a program, you know, an institution of trying to make sure that they're there, I still think that like there's a space for really being thoughtful about those. And I think we're on the same page. I think they're doing it with Jessica Jones.
Yeah. And
they're doing it, and I would celebrate them for the work that they're doing thus far.
And that's why I've enjoyed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too, and Agent Carter, because it's like even like from the standpoint, like I want women to be more represented. I want minorities to be more represented because it's right, but also because it's more interesting. Like I've seen every story you can see of a white male superhero, right? Like I love Captain America, but like, you know, he's a
fossil.
Yeah, right. And it's like there's Superman and there's Batman, and it's just like I get that all their stories are deeper and they all have their own things, but like there's just interesting angles from including other types of characters. Like even in that first episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the fact that they like, you know, just mentioned that Inhuman they found was gay, like, and they didn't make a big deal out of it. They just said, "Oh, your boyfriend," right? And it's just like, yeah, like there are people who live lives like everyone else who could be superheroes or could be villains or whatever. It doesn't matter. And so, like, I just want to see that because it's more interesting. And I like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because it's like I like seeing the origin story of a female superhero, and that being Daisy, right? Like seeing how she goes from being an orphan to finding out her parentage to finding out, you know, that she has powers and all this. And it's been really interesting, you know, especially since like that isn't something as a more casual fan that I've seen, because everyone knows the backstory of Superman and Batman, but I didn't know Daisy's backstory, right? I got to kind of see it unfold, even though it wasn't completely true to the comics, but I got to see it unfold throughout the show. And it was really, really interesting and awesome. Anyway, I know, deep stuff.
Power through. We've got.
Let's talk about some comedies.
Well, I want to. Well, no, actually, let's talk about some comedies. Let's go to Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So, I love that show, and there's not a lot to say about it because it's just consistent. Like, and I read this article on it, and it's so consistent that it's almost bad. Like, it doesn't have peaks and valleys. Like it's like consistently funny. It's consistently well written. The characters just like they make decisions that match their character. I just love that show, but there's like, I can't from a week by week basis, like say like, oh, this episode was okay. And this episode was really great. Like it just, you know what I mean? Like, how do you feel about it?
It's a problem that I see, and I bring this up in I brought it up in my Muppets review. It's the 30 Rock problem.
Yeah.
At a certain point, if you're too consistent, there's no stakes, because there are no stakes with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think the closest that they ever get to stakes is when they throw relationship stuff in there, when they throw in actual like job things, but because it's a workplace comedy and because of the specific type of work that they're doing, they can never really branch out as much as they would like. And I don't know, I mean, Parks and Rec got away with it because there was places where she could go, you know. There was first they like would focus whole seasons on projects, then they would move to like her job.
Yeah.
And so that filled the 6 seasons of, okay, project, well, first season, who cares? The Harvest Festival, and then da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Then she became the city councilman, and then she got voted out of city council, and then brought the town together, and then they moved to, she becomes head of parks. They had room and a trajectory for the show to go, and you even sort of felt that as you're interacting with the characters. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, while maintaining a lot of the comedic elements of Parks and Rec, and that's where I would say it differentiates from 30 Rock. I think their humor sensibilities are completely different, but they run into the same 30 Rock problems, that they lean so heavily on this really tight, really fantastic comedic sensibility that you don't worry about the characters. You don't feel for them. Like, Terry got fat this last episode. That was a funny little gag, because it's funny to see
the most like jacked guy, like fat.
Terry Crews in a fat suit. I almost forgot his name, but then I remembered, oh wait, his name's the same as his character. You see him in a fat suit, that's like a funny gag. And you know that the clock's going to be reset, and that Terry's always going to care about his family and love yogurt. Scully and Hitchcock are always going to be horrible miscreants. Boyle's going to be weirdly intense about his weird Boyle stuff.
But like, as you're saying this, I'm just reminding me how much I love these characters. You know what I mean? And that's just a testament to Schur, right? Mike Schur, who's been one of the main guys on The Office, on Parks, and now on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And he's just got this great comedy mind. And even like the main, you know, dividing issue this season has been resolved. Like, you know, Captain Holt's back. He's back at the Nine-Nine. I mean, they have clear antagonists. And it's funny because he got Ron Swanson in the sense that he was the antagonist. And after one season, he's like part of the gang, you know, like, albeit with his own, like, you know, I don't get this. I don't get why you're like this. But like, you've seen him play along with that
was, so I will say, if we were looking for episodes that are better than other ones, that one was stronger.
Yeah.
In the sense that, man, that like camaraderie between Peralta and Captain Holt, like, it was always one-sided. Like, he wanted to like him so much, and sometimes, occasionally, he would dangle like a little like bit of approval, like, Peralta, I guess you have done a good thing. But this episode is like, they're both in it. They're both just excited to be around each other. Feel that excitement.
Oh, that was great.
So great where they take on the serial killer. And that, if they can ride that wave and do something with it, that'll be interesting. But again, like, the show, while being solid, again, the show will last as long as its jokes stay solid. But if it really wants to be the new Parks and Rec, it's going to have to find its heart. Otherwise, it's just a really funny vehicle for some pretty talented actors. Which, again, like, why knock a show for this? This is, of course, great. But, I mean, I think in 2015, like, shows can't just be quality anymore. You know?
They got to have something interesting, because, like, what separates them from the pack? Yeah. I don't know. We haven't even talked about Amy and Rosa. I just, aside from just having like massive crushes on them, like, they're just really great comedic actors as well. And, you know, not something people would say of Melissa Fumero probably before the show, but I think she has like this hidden comedic ability that has been found in the show. And I think she's hilarious as like the You know, like she
super awkward Charlie Brown.
Yeah, she's and
follower.
She's just, I don't know, she's awesome. But yeah, so I'll keep following the season, kind of see like
Oh yeah, definitely gonna watch it. Like
yeah.
It's always a delight to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I've never felt it to be a chore. And again, that's the issue with it, where it's like, it's. I wouldn't even go so far as to say it's like ice cream. It's like something different. It's like pizza. You always like pizza.
I know, like you're never not in the mood for it, but it's not.
It's a meal too. Like you could eat that and be like, I've eaten a meal. You can't do that with ice cream. It's like I eat ice cream and then I still have to have dinner.
Yeah.
And you have good pizza and you got bad pizza, but at the same time, it is a self-contained meal. I don't know if I'm pushing this metaphor too far. That's the thing where I feel about Brooklyn Nine-Nine is I never want to miss Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I never feel like I don't want to watch it, but I don't have that same like crazy feeling I have in the back of my head that I get with other comedies.
Yeah.
But also like S.H.I.E.L.D, where I'm like, I need to know. I need to use these characters again. You know?
Or to kind of mention what we mentioned earlier, Orphan Black. Like I always, every week when that show ends, I'm like, why is it not next week? You know? God, I wish we were doing this when that show was airing, because like I needed someone to geek out with that.
Oh my God.
About that show with. But you know, we have next season for that.
Speaking of other comedies, we always got to talk about the Muppets.
Yes.
Because I felt, and this was really funny, especially when I was like working my reviews, like, and we were talking about it in the Slack channel. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, this Muppets was like the best! It's the best ever!" And I was like, "Oh man, I haven't seen it yet, but I hope I agree with you guys." And I don't know if that's what made me have my weird feelings towards it or anything, but it was kind of like the same thing. Like I loved it. And again, that was like my first sentence was like, "This is good." Do not let what I'm about to say make you think this episode is not good. It's phenomenal, because every episode of Muppets has been great. But it was the first episode that like lacked really compelling celebrity cameos, in the sense that like the celebrities weren't playing characters. Like Ed Helms was just there. It was just like, and here's Ed Helms. Being Ed Helms here, as opposed to like when Nick Offerman was on the show, he had a character that wanted something and like went after it. When Christina Applegate was on the show.
Oh, I loved her cameo.
Like when the celebrities on the show, Liam Hemsworth, they want things and they go after them, and while they are celebrities, they're also characters.
Yeah.
This episode, I'd say by that definition, was actually devoid of celebrities, because Ed Helms wasn't playing a character. Ed Helms was being Ed Helms.
He was being the annoying Ed Helms from The Office, in that like he just wanted to sing and like schmooze with people. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but it made sense, because it was literally like the context in which that's not annoying. Like if he was being Ed Helms, he would be doing it in a place where it wouldn't be appropriate, and thusly we have like the tension and the comedy. But it was literally like, who would make the most sense here? Ed Helms is like, no, bring in a celebrity to add conflicts. Bring in a celebrity to push the plot forward. But he was like he was the exclamation point of already a solid episode. And so again, I don't think it makes sense for them to be able to like to be so nitpicky about that. But when you have a show that's been riding highs this hard, even the tiniest dip, which wasn't even really a dip, I think it was just a sort of like shift. Like when you sit in a position too long and you just kind of have to move a little bit just to get your blood flowing. I feel like this was that episode, because there was a lot of great stuff. Oh, a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is I was kind of on the like over the moon about it, but then when I rewatched it, because I rewatched it with my wife like on Friday nights, I felt the same way, because like we binged the first 3 episodes together last week. Or 2 weeks ago, and then last week we watched. I can't think of the timeline now, but we watched it. Oh no, because this week it wasn't on. Yeah, so like 2 weeks ago we binged, and then the last week. Anyway, whatever. But when we watched the 4th episode, we didn't have that same like we weren't laughing as much as the first 3. But she loves Josh Groban, so like that episode sold her immediately. But yeah, I saw that too, where I was just like, maybe it was the characters focusing on, and why is Fozzie always in the B plot? Like, why is he?
I'm okay with that. Again, like I know at least you have seen my review.
Yes,
that's the only thing I always bring up is I'm like, and we've got our Fozzie B plot. They've sold me on that. I'm totally down. They've used it great. I'm totally on board with Fozzie. I wasn't. I always used to hate Fozzie. I love Fozzie now because he's the character that adds heart. And honestly, like, without his plot this episode, it would have even been more irritating. But, like, you feel for Fozzie as he's dealing with, like, Statler, which I felt like that plot was the strongest plot, and it's so weird how they do that. I still like want to like find the magic sauce where I'm like, how are you turning Fozzie, who is a garbage character, into the most heartfelt, hilarious bits of the show? I don't know how they do it, but they did it. Like, he shoots Stadler.
Yeah.
And then a whole crazy series of events unfurl where they kind of deal with the fact that he doesn't have any friends because he's such a dick to everybody. But then he just keeps trolling Fozzie like, the whole time. And Fozzie keeps, like, because he's such a good-hearted person, trying to, like, help him out. And that was the kind of, like, Muppets energy that I wanted, of, like, this combo earnestness, but also silliness. And we get it a little bit with the main plot, which was like, Piggy wants to hang out with the cast. They don't want to. And then it kind of was paint by numbers after that. Like, there were funny jokes, but we've seen that episode before in other shows, and I think that's probably what makes it feel, while well executed, like there's no stakes, because we don't actually worry about anyone. And then the usual C plot, where they kind of devote on like a smaller character, was kind of the same deal, where it's like, it's a plot we've already seen. Unrequited co-worker love.
Oh, yeah. I even forgotten about that.
It's like the C plots in other episodes, like when you put them next to each other, you realize that, like, yeah, I think this was the episode where they phoned it in is not the right word, because they like committed to the bits and the beats for those types of episodes, but it becomes like, oh yes, that we've seen this in The Office, we've seen this in Parks and Rec, we've seen this in the yada 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 yada. But like the C plot with the Liam Hemsworth was fantastic. That was just, it's so wily and out of left field and absolutely crazy. Or what was the one with Gonzo? And was it Gonzo's? No, okay, I'm talking about the same one. I can't remember. But like, those are just two examples. Only 4 episodes.
I know. It's like I'm trying to, because we missed it this week, so I'm like a little bit out of the loop on, like, you know what I mean? Like, that show isn't in my conscience right now.
The pattern has been the same, though. They've always had, there's a Kermit Piggy plot, a Fozzie plot, and then a let's dig in. Oh, Bo the Bear.
Oh, with the
Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah.
Like, that has, you know, stakes, and you get to learn about a new character. And then what was... it doesn't matter. This is the Groban episode. But the idea is that, like, we learn about a character that's already so one-dimensional that you can't learn anything about him. Like, Sam the Eagle, while great when used, is Sam the Eagle. It's just like, it's a straight-laced kind of doofy dude. And Janice is still just the girl. And so when we're watching it, like, there's funny bits. But yeah, it's just like, it didn't I guess, seem as creative as the other episodes, while still being phenomenal.
Yeah.
Again, but we're getting into October now. We can't expect everything.
Yeah. So I wanted to quickly talk about some of the shows that none of them actually have been officially canceled. A couple have been picked up. So let's actually talk about the picked up ones first. So Quantico's been picked up, Blind Spot, Rosewood, and Dr. Ken. Like, those are the official ones we have. Like, Muppets hasn't even been picked up officially.
Yeah. But it's interesting, like, why, like, and how these things get picked up. Quantico makes a bunch of sense.
Yeah, totally.
It's just so phenomenal. Everyone loves it. It's highly rated.
It's got that actress. Like, I mean,
it's got that phenomenal, beautiful Indian actress who's killing it on all sorts. It's just, it's basically, it's another How to Get Away with Murder type show that is being incredibly topical. Like, that makes total sense to me. And obviously probably have to get on production real soon anyway, so it would make sense they'd want to know sooner than later. That's totally fine with me. Blind Spot's kind of in a similar category. Like, it's not a bad show from what I've heard. Again, I haven't seen a lot of these shows, but like from just the buzz that I'm hearing about them is, it's solid, but I start buzzing my eyebrows where I'm like, but is it that solid? It's definitely not more solid than the Muppets. You know? Definitely not more solid than, like, obviously better shows.
Yeah.
And so that's the question where it starts being like, who was the exec that was able to greenlight that one so quickly? Because 4 episodes? Like, just came out.
I think it got enough response. You know, it's one of those shows. It's like what Big Bang Theory is for comedy at this point, where it's like, it's a known quantity, it's consistent, and not in the way Brooklyn Nine-Nine is consistent. Like, it just, like, consistently draws enough viewers and draws a certain demographic that they're like, cool. You know, it's like, and Blind Spot to me just seems like a kind of sci-fi-ish procedural, kind of like, what's that one on CBS, The Blacklist. But anyway, like it's just like consistent and it's on. I think Blind Spot's on NBC, and like it's not like they're not hurting for shows that work.
They are hurting for shows. That makes sense. Now that actually is the piece of the puzzle for me because NBC has nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
So anything that anyone is watching on NBC gets to stay.
Mm-hmm. What I don't get is Dr. Ken, and is Dr. Ken on ABC? What
Dr. Ken, I think, is ABC as well.
See, that one I don't get. ABC is not hurting for good programming. They have the best comedy block right now, and they have the most talked about comedies. One that you love, Blackish. They have Fresh Off the Boat. So I don't get it. I haven't watched it, but from everything I've seen, it is the most cheesy, campy, like horrific comedy, and I just like can't.
And maybe that's the bit is that what ABC doesn't have is, with the exception of Modern Family, which needs to die.
Yes,
it doesn't have a sort of bankable. Doesn't have a boring show actually. All their shows are kind of not high stakes, but Blackish is. Oh, they're killing it, but like is incredibly topical and is not a show that's, while done very well, it's not a show that's going to be super comfortable for like a lot of people to watch. Not to say it's uncomfortable, but just that, again, same deal with Fresh Off the Boat. Like you got to have people that are already down.
Yeah. And
Dr. Ken, it's great because it's based on Ken Jeong's actual life when he was a dentist before he was a comedian. Crazy. But if it wasn't him shopping the show, like the plot line actually could have been like a white dude. It's just kind of another workplace comedy, and I think it's star power. Like the only compelling thing that I've got for it is star power. Is the combo of it's a really simple cheeseball show that why not, and that keeping Ken around is worth the cost of the show for whatever Disney may or may not want him to do in the future.
It's kind of like, I guess, like Two Broke Girls is still on the air. So
Jonathan Kite is great, though. I was listening to him on the Nerdist podcast. He was surprisingly, like, amazingly funny, and by surprisingly in the sense that, like, I don't really like Two Broke Girls. To know that he's behind it makes it make more sense that it's still around. That being said, you're right. Like, Two Broke Girls, I'm like, why? Like, I love Kat Dennings, but like, the show's not inspired. It's just kind of
and it totally falls on stereotypes and and that was a show I gave like a chance to, and then I was like, wait, like everyone in their shop is just like a walking stereotype. It's horrible. But then that's what like Dr. Ken feels like. It feels like he's making fun of his own stereotype, which he's done in The Hangover, and he's done like in Community, where he was the Spanish teacher, right? Like, which was the best use of him. After that, they like totally lost any idea of what to do with his character, and he was
they brought it back in season 6.
They did.
Season 6 Chang is primo Chang.
But I mean, aside from but yeah, he was always up and down in that show, and so I don't get it, but I mean, good for him. He's someone I tolerate, and I like at times, and I tolerate most of the time. But it's not a show I'm ever going to watch.
I might see it just to figure it out. It might be like one of those shows that ends up being like perfect for me, and everyone hates it because I have a weird sensibility, which is pretty much what happened with Community. I was like, I hear about this weird show that like no one likes that much. Oh, it's not good. And then eventually watched it. I was like, oh, it's because it was made just for me. Well, Heroes was kind of the same way too, where it was like, this is just for me.
I haven't watched past the first 2 episodes of that show, by the way.
I like it. Wait, are you talking about like ever or just the reboot?
This reboot of Heroes Reborn.
I like it. They lowered the bar, and I feel like it makes the show more enjoyable, but also not, in the sense that like they're like, okay, we're not going to be able to do season 1 as hardcore as we did. Let's shoot for a solid B and deliver. And they're doing it, but like there has not been an A episode.
Yeah.
but also I can't be mad because it's seemingly very clear that they're not trying to do that. So it's a weird space to be. I'm not recommending it to people. I'm not like singing on the rooftop, oh my god, go watch Heroes. But I'm like, you're not going to have a bad time. And I'd say it's a step above Laundry Show. It is a solid show that you could watch.
It's like a show you watch while doing your bills? I don't know.
No, I think you could be like, I'm going to watch Heroes now. And then you sit down and you watch it and you have a good... I don't know. It's hard to describe. I think it's all about managing expectations is the issue with Heroes. Yeah. And I think they've done a good job of maintaining it, and the shorter season helps. It does.
All right, so some of the shows that are presumably canceled, and when you have a theory on that you really like, so let's just talk about Minority Report.
So I got to talk about Minority Report. Again, that's another one that I've been covering on the website. I love it. Again, every single episode is better than the last. It keeps getting better. The characterization gets tighter. And this past episode that I just watched this morning, I felt like they finally clicked into, like, this is why this show is important. But also it's super depressing because it kind of comes on the heels of some potentially troubling news of its last 3 episodes not getting picked up. They were sort of shooting for a 13-episode season, and they decided to go for a 10-episode season. And this is 5 episodes in. It finally got locked in to the point where it's not like, it has promise, maybe it'll deliver. It literally was there. And I was like, yes, I can finally pitch this show to people. It's there, it's great. Not unlike how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was in the beginning. Hell, even Buffy. It finally locked. I finally got what it was doing. I finally got how it was doing, and they built enough of a world that everyone's there. But then we get this news. I did end up reading something today, because especially after this episode, I was like, no way. It's just too quality. I'll blame it on their marketing more than anything. A show this quality, and Fox doesn't have everything on lock. Still, they're not out of the woods. The star power on this show is really fantastic. I'm not gonna immediately go that the show is gone.
I mean, this is the same network that's doing a Sleepy Hollow and Bones mashup. Come on.
Yeah, well, actually, that doesn't help the case that much. But what I ended up reading is that one of the producers was like, "Hey, the plan was always to shoot 10, but we were optioned for 13, and we had some stuff that we could do with it, but we just decided to do and focus on the 10 that we had. No decisions have been made." We could just go on to it. The story will be complete. It's not like, there are some shows where they get the axe. It's just, and the show ended before we even got our finale. Or they pushed the finale. They pushed the finale early or something goofy like that. So at the very least, even if it doesn't get picked up again, it's going to end up being complete. And while I'd be sad for it to get canceled, I would be more sad for it to get canceled without an end. And from the vibe is that it may just stop as opposed to getting the axe, because and that's the next one that we're getting to, truth be told. And there's another one. Maybe I'm conflating them, but 5 episodes in, they're just nope, done, hard pass. We're not doing this anymore.
Truth be told, I was only gonna check out because it initially had the girl who was in New Girl.
Which one? The Cece?
Not Cece. It had. So, do you watch New Girl?
Yeah.
So the girl that Coach went off with, it had her, but so she was in the original pilot. So I was like, and I love her. She's not only just visually amazing to look at, but I really liked her acting, and I was interested to see her in a comedy, kind of as one of the leads. But then one of her other pilots got picked up, and so she got replaced with Vanessa Lachey, I guess. And so it took a show that I was it's like Two Broke Girls, where it's I like Kat Dennings, and so I checked it out for her, and then I was like, nope, this sucks. I didn't even check it out because the actress that I liked that was in it wasn't in it. So not surprised at all. Comedies the traditional sitcoms that deal with the men and women problems are just feel so outdated. There's so much more you can do with comedies. Brooklyn Nine-Nine proves that. Parks and Rec proves that.
Well, the last one that pulled it off was How I Met Your Mother. It took 9 seasons, and it completely leaned on a creative storytelling aspect. It couldn't do it on the nose.
Yeah.
and like maybe like Happy Endings is a show that like kind of dealt with a 5-man band sort of deal, but then they made up for it by just being like the funniest improv actors in the world. Like no one's being sold on just men are like this, women are like this. You always have to have your angle, and people keep forgetting that. And it's like, oh yeah, I can just fliff out a show that's that, and it's like, nope, you cannot do that in 2015. You need an angle.
It's like you're really going for the, like in the previews I've seen the hot nanny. And I'm like, God, oh, she did porn. Like, come on, this is the stuff frat boys write, you know, like just
frat boys from like 1998.
I know.
Our frat boys, and again, I'm not gonna ever talk up frat boys, but having been all raised on Jon Stewart, even they wouldn't do some boring schlock like that. Like, I'd say it's an insult to flat boys to say it's that bad. It's that pedestrian.
Yeah. So, good riddance, whatever. I mean, it's like, I mean, just and again, networks don't know what they're doing because they passed on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and allowed Netflix to get it. So it's like, they obviously don't know what good comedy is, right? So it's, you just kind of like just roll your eyes at it and realize that a lot of people in high positions in entertainment still don't get it, you know?
They don't get it. Well, they're also old.
Yeah, that's true. So they're like, oh, it's funny. It's men humor. You know, it's like, okay. Men
still run the world, right?
Yeah.
Like, white men, we still run everything, yeah? It's like, ask... Ask Mitt Romney. No,
oh God,
they don't.
Oh man. All right, so let's talk about tech now.
All right.
How about that? All right, so a couple weeks back, Microsoft introduced the Surface Book and the Surface Pro 4. So I haven't taken a look at the Surface Book yet. There is a Microsoft store down the street from where I work. I plan to check it out when it does get into the store. What do you think? I mean, from what you've seen.
From what I've seen, and this is, again, disclosure, me and Corey both used to work at the Apple store.
Yes.
So I don't know, just so you know my feelings, I'm very impressed. Mm-hmm. I've always been impressed with when Microsoft, like they've seen their business model flounder, like when Steve Jobs took the MacBook and said, close end to end, we're taking control of everything, we've got the best OS, we've got the thing, everything's controlled, we're going to do our thing. You know, we've seen the story of Apple, it worked, and it worked for very specific reasons. Microsoft has always been like, we'll create your dope software, but we'll let the hardware kind of be decided by
all these other companies.
All these other companies. And all the other companies have different aims, and Microsoft is positioning itself as a lifestyle company now can't just be on every computer. The win condition of just being on every computer isn't enough to actually sustain them as a Bible rival to Google and Apple. They need to also be a lifestyle, and to be a lifestyle they have to set standards.
Yeah.
And so like when they came out with the Surface, like obviously it's a knockoff of the iPad, but more than that, it's here's the gold standard for Windows tablet PCs. If you're doing less than this, know that you are purposefully being worse, and everyone else, here's the standard. And regardless of how I felt about it, I still prefer iPads. I thought it was a very good, brilliant move on their part. And so, even more so, with the Surface Book, I finally see if I ever were to go to Windows, a machine that I could have that would actually serve my purposes. And that's kind of a cool thing to see. Like, again, it's a weird Empire Rebels thing where, because I'm an Apple fan, like, we used to be the Rebels, but now we're definitely the Empire.
Totally.
Microsoft come up. I really appreciate it. And I've met some friends of late just because of how I've been on the internet and interacting with them that have worked at Microsoft and have positive feelings about it, and have gotten a chance to leave the Apple bubble enough to really respect some of the work that they're doing. It's a good-looking piece of hardware.
Yeah.
It's real powerful, and not powerful just to be powerful, but like with specific like tasks in mind. Again, I'm still all about that iPad Pro. Oh my god.
Oh yeah,
that's really great. iPad Pro, Apple Pen, that's gonna be my jam. But I can no longer really in good faith deride anyone who has a Surface Book and be like, you do you. You got the dope version of what you can get in your platform. Like
Yeah.
the discrepancy is much smaller now.
Yeah. So when I was working at Apple, I was moonlighting. So like my main job, I was doing advertising, and then I'd moonlight at the Apple Store, and the whole reason was for health insurance and whatever. But what was funny is at the time I was working for an agency that was advertising Microsoft. So during the day, I would work on Surface Pro 2 at the time because it was 2 years ago. And then at night, I'd go sell Apple products. So I got to really see like the thought process behind both, right? And so like I'd go to Apple and I'd be like, yep, this stuff sells itself. Like this is easy. And then in the advertising world, like you would see what Microsoft was chasing, and they were obviously chasing Apple. Their slogan was like thinner, lighter, faster. And then Apple announced an iPad, and they literally had to take out thinner and lighter and faster because like they had to like redo their campaign because it was no longer true. Like Apple beat them again. And it was just like, I remember thinking like, stop trying to beat Apple. Like Apple's clearly said, we're not going to do the tablet computer hybrid. So just like own that. That's your category, and just make it good for what like you want your user base to be. And then like seeing the Surface Book come out and actually like be a MacBook Pro, but also still the tablet, like, you know, you could detach it from the keyboard and the hinge design and all that. I'm like, thank you. Like put some thought into your hardware finally, you know, like one reason I haven't switched to Android is maybe it's because Apple's taught me this way, but I like having my hardware and software like united. I like my hardware and software working in unison and knowing that they were designed with each other in mind. And the problem with Android for me is that it's always fragmented. It's like you don't have the latest. If you have like a Samsung, it might update later. If you have like a Motorola, you have a different type of Android. Like the only real full Android experience you can get is if you have a Nexus, right? So with Windows, like I felt the same way. It's like your Windows experience from a Dell to a Toshiba to whatever is going to be different. And you know, I want Microsoft to build hardware that really captures what they want out of Windows before I even like consider it, and because that's what I love about Apple. Like it all talks to each other and it all makes sense together, right? Like my watch talks to my phone, talks to my iPad, talks to my computer, you know, and so for that alone, like I like it. Not that I'm gonna go and get one. Like I'm totally immersed in the Apple, but it's like I never get the whole fanboyism thing of like even, you know, Android versus iOS or Windows versus Apple or whatever, because I want them all to succeed because they all make each other better, right? Like the whole phablet thing is the reason why I now have an iPhone 6 Plus, and I love my iPhone 6 Plus. So it's like, so thank you other, you know, companies who made those. So yeah, I only think it's positive, and like I think I even bought Microsoft stock like a year or so ago when they started talking about HoloLens, because I'm like, yes, you're finally like being innovative again. Like this is like what you were born on, or what you became successful on, was being innovative. And then like they just like rested their laurels on this Microsoft Office and Windows, and then they even stopped making Windows good, and they stopped making Office good, and now like Office is good again and Windows is good again, right? And it's just like, thank you for like being the Microsoft that I grew up with, because I was a Microsoft guy until I got Apple, and then I was an Apple guy because to me Apple had become what Microsoft used to be. And so it's just funny to see all that happening. But I'm not one who's like totally married to a platform or to a company, you know, like you and I, we don't get Beats just because Apple owns them.
They're
like
horrible.
Yeah, like I'll be loyal to a brand, but I won't look the other way if something better comes along. Like I use Dropbox, but if something gets better than Dropbox, which is starting to happen, I will abandon it, right? And like
Dropbox commercials, which exist, are the saddest in the world. They're popping up on Hulu now, and I'm just like, don't, Dropbox, you need to not be showing your user experience on any sort of app because it just looks bad.
I know.
It's so gross. Like it's not a sexy product at all. And I'm just like, you put this on the TV. Don't do that.
Yeah, stop it.
Dropbox is an idea, and then they get there and they're like, oh, well, I guess okay, this is that, and you go about your business. But to your point, yes. Whoever is the best, and compellingly so, because again, that's the trick with like media and advertising is, well, obviously everyone wants to tell their story, wants to tell like the best version of that, but like you'll see it when you see it's the Kleenex effect.
Yeah.
You know, like I see people talking about Surfaces still as iPads and tablets as iPads. Like that shows you like what has. Or the fact is that like in the South, Coke is soda.
Yeah, and
When a Coke, it's like, okay, what flavor?
well, and it's like, and Apple's done that with 3 categories at this point. You know, an MP3 player is an iPod always. A tablet for the most part is an iPad, and a phone. Like people are like, oh, iPhone. Like, you know, there's no like Android phone that is the closest is a Galaxy, right? But then like it isn't as ubiquitous, at least from what I've seen and heard in my life. And you know, I work for a company now where I develop apps for both Android and iOS, and even the Android people, a lot of them have iPhones. So it's like, you know, so Apple succeeded in that, and I think now even with watches, like people, if you're wearing a watch, which we both are, they'll say, "Oh, Apple Watch," or iWatch. Everyone always says iWatch, and I'm like, Apple Watch.
Apple Watch.
But that's like a whole. Wendell and I can go on a whole thing of like things we heard while working at the Apple store that drove us nuts. Like it's not an AirBook. It's not a like,
the i5. Yeah. The iPhone 5. You got the i5. That's a highway. What are you doing? You can't just put I in front of numbers and it's. Or the new iPad. I remember that. People would say, "Can I get the iPad for me?" Oh, you mean the new iPad?
Oh God, but that was just bad naming.
That was terrible.
Speaking of bad naming, I read an article about how badly Google names things, like YouTube Red. You know, did you? Yeah, and how it like very closely resembles a popular porn site. Like that's good job, good job, Google.
Anyone?
But even like Google Drive is poorly named.
Well, Google Drive, formerly Google Docs, Google Wave, these weird things that like are so abstract and goofy, and then they barely really don't tell you what the thing does.
Yeah. I know.
But jumping to what's the other thing? That Apple TV?
Apple TV. So orders start Monday, and so I will be ordering and waiting for it.
That's one that it's tricky. Like I know I want it, and I know I'll eventually have it, but it's the one Apple product that I never feel the same. Like I have to have the first one. Again, I got the iPhone, I got the watch, personal devices that are on my body. Totally about it. And even like the iPad, like I didn't get one, but I immediately started like a savings account so I can get my hand on Apple TV, even at the price point, which is not unreasonable. $200 is really solid, and even what it's ultimately going to do. It's weird. I find myself being like slightly reticent because I've got the full setup in my hand. I got the Roku, I got the Apple TV, and I got the Chromecast all running.
You need to write like a comparison article between the three because like I've used Chromecast a little bit. I've used Apple TV. So when I told you off the record here when I got my iMac, when I got that iMac, I got an Apple TV with it, and so since then like it's been essential. What I use it for, though, is like I'll download movies to my iTunes. Like I won't buy them from iTunes. I'll download them and like they'll be in my library. And then I can like watch them on the Apple TV. So like just like go into the shared library and watch them. And that's like pretty awesome and essential, you know, and then obviously Netflix and Hulu or whatever else. And then, you know, being able to beam it to from your phone or whatever. So I love it. I mean, like it's one of those devices in our house that like if we didn't have it, we would be screwed with our kids because like it's like, oh my God, they need to watch something. Like put on Netflix on the Apple TV and the remote is always lost. But the fact that you can like go on your phone and like use the remote app,
phone, your watch.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and actually, there's probably something that's worth putting pen to paper about is that. I think the reason why I'm not so crazy excited about the new Apple TV is that I have everything, and that the Apple TV for people who don't have any device is the perfect device. This new one that's coming out is perfect in the sense that like I use my Roku mainly to run Plex. I've got a friend that has a Plex server, and he's got all sorts of content on it, and the thing that runs Plex is the Roku. Simple as that. And there's certain features that Apple needs to get on, like that remote, not the remote, the headphone jack in the remote. So I can be watching my huge TV and not bother my roommate. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
actually, I think she's in the living room right now because she knows I'm recording this. With the headphones in. That's amazing. Chromecast is really great for using with your phone. I love using because Chromecast is run on your phone. any content on the phone is phenomenal. It's just real great. But they all can't do everything. The Apple TV comes the closest to that. Mm-hmm. And then with the other apps and the fact that more people are going to be creating stuff for it because of the Apple ecosystem, etc., it's going to be super solid, but it's hard to justify for me when I have a functioning everything to drop $200 more to have what ultimately still ends up being the same thing.
Yeah, the gaming aspect really intrigues me. The bulk of games I play these days are mobile games, like on my iPad or on my phone. Again, it's just like because you have kids, like when I'm on the train to work, like that's a great time to play games. Like I don't have quite the time to like sit at a PC and play or sit at a console and play. So that I really like because then it can like kind of bring the games to it, and then there's possibility of games that like my kids can play with me. I love that like all you need is a phone and then you can like join in on a game. Plex is going to develop an app for it. So it's got it's the logical next step of like open the ecosystem, allow developers to develop for it. Because the thing that's not been great is like just like the way the interface is on the Apple TV now, and it's dated. You can tell it's locked. So I'm really excited to see what developers do. It's like this 3D touch thing on the iPhone where it's like you can see how developers are starting to use that, and that to me is like super exciting. Every day I'm like, oh, there's an app update. Did someone add it? And I press hard and I'm like, yeah, there's options.
Yeah, they did it. And the thing that excites me about the Apple TV is also the thing that makes me want to wait and see what happens is that the opportunity as a solution for the cable problem is really great. Like if eventually I want to watch a sport, I want to be able to get that channel that's just here's the sport channel and you pay a rolling subscription of like $2 or $3 or however much bucks a month, and now you have access to that channel. A la carte television is what I will never have Disney XD. It's the only show I watch on is Star Wars Rebels. I have to have my friend use his server to get access to Disney XD. If there's just a Disney XD button, app, boom, 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 beep, boop, beep, boop, I go, everything's great. And I can have access to that. We already got that with HBO. We've already got that with the major networks. It'll be like, who's going to be the enterprising cable provider or whatnot that pulls a T-Mobile and does the thing that no one wants to do. Like T-Mobile was the person that said, forget contracts, we're done with that. We're done subsidizing data. It's just, we're breaking it. It's going to be hard. It's going to suck, but it's going to happen anyway. So we might as well do it now and pull all the customers that we can get to us while it's still new and refreshing. And now that was 2-3 years ago, and now no one has contracts.
I know.
So that's how it's going to ultimately break. Like Apple really wanted to do the iTunes thing where it could just like roll up, smack the industry around, and say, and now it works this way.
Yeah.
Obviously, it didn't happen, but they have still seen success, just like with their App Store, the original iPhone. Of all right, let's let the free market take care of it. Let's just let someone smart's gonna figure it out and break the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna get it and I'll review it. So, so yeah, I'm excited. You got to kind of choose with Apple, right? Because they have so many products coming out. Like iPad Pro is. Like, I want to get the new iMac before I would get the iPad Pro, but man, that's like the thing. As soon as that comes out, it's going to be hard not to like just want to pull the trigger and get that. But yeah, well, cool. Any other final thoughts, plugs you want to make?
Final thoughts or plugs? No, but I can sort of hint at the future. This will be news to Corey, so I'm watching Star Wars every day for a month. I've already got my tickets for like the first like 3-4 days, but I don't know if it's going to end up being a podcast or just like a live blog, but like going to different theaters, different states, what have you. Because of course it's the holiday season, so that's also just like a part of, I'll be traveling, but I'm still going to be watching it wherever I go. Going to watch it and do like a rundown of that. So be on the lookout.
That's awesome.
This summer.
Coming this summer. We need John for that. We need his voice.
Oh, right.
Well, cool. Yeah, we have, besides the podcast, we have all kinds of great content on hugenerd.net. News, reviews. We're really starting to add into the entertainment part of the site, like with some parodies and shorts and lot of cool, fun stuff. You know, we're not just a site that recycles what's on the internet. We actually want to create our own content, and I'm really proud of that. So be sure to check that out. But yeah, that's been our segment, Circuits and Screens. Thank you all for joining us, and stay nerdy, my friends.
Stay nerdy. I still that URL is so primo. HugeNerd.net. Tell your friends. Dub.
Thanks for tuning in to the Huge Nerd Podcast. Visit our site at hugenerd.net and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Huge Nerd Network.
Yay! Guys, Halloween is a week away. Can you believe it? Oh my god.
So excited.
Dude. So, what is everyone gonna be for Halloween? What are you gonna be, Crystal?
I'm gonna be Elsa. I mean, I already look like her. I've got the hair. I made this amazing costume. It took me like 9 months to do. I had to sew on all these sequins individually, all iridescent. And I even made the ice shoes. I based them off of concept art by Britt Lee. And I made them from craft.